Within hours, the internet was on fire. One photo turned into dozens of videos. One fleeting moment exploded into a global conversation. Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet once again became the center of attention after photos and videos of them at a private Palm Springs event suddenly went viral across social media. If you're watching or listening to this now, stay until the very end, because there's a subtle detail most people missed, and that detail may explain why this moment hit harder than anyone expected. Share your thoughts and reactions, because public opinion this time is sharply divided. At first glance, it looked ordinary. A low-key, invite-only event in Palm Springs attended by high-profile celebrities. Phones were out, cameras flashed occasionally, and the atmosphere felt relaxed yet undeniably exclusive. But everything changed the moment Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet were captured walking side by side. No dramatic posing. No official statements. Just body language, quiet, controlled, and louder than words. In one of the most widely shared clips, Kylie appeared in a clean, minimalist outfit in neutral tones, while Timothée embraced his signature effortless Hollywood style. The distance between them was minimal, almost intentional. A brief glance. A small smile. Steps perfectly in sync. It seemed insignificant, but that was exactly where speculation began. Less than an hour later, the footage flooded TikTok, Instagram, and X. Searches for Kylie Jenner Timothée Chalamet Palm Springs skyrocketed to the top of trending lists. Entertainment media moved fast, dissecting every frame, zooming in on every gesture, and analyzing every second of the circulating videos. Sources present at the event revealed that the pair arrived without any formal announcement. They didn't walk a red carpet together, yet they entered the venue within moments of each other. That quiet arrival only deepened the intrigue. Was it coincidence, or a carefully calculated move designed to speak without saying anything at all? Reactions online quickly split into opposing camps. Some fans viewed the appearance as clear proof that their relationship has reached a more serious, stable phase. Others believed the moment was meticulously controlled, suggesting every step was measured. The tension in the narrative grew stronger by the hour. Then, right at the peak of the buzz, another video surfaced. Shorter. Closer. Far more intimate. The camera caught Timothée leaning slightly toward Kylie, seemingly whispering something. Kylie responded with a smile, not for the camera, but a spontaneous, unguarded expression. That clip ignited a new wave of reactions, with many calling it the most genuine moment from the entire Palm Springs appearance. But the story didn't stop there. Hours later, an independent photographer released high-resolution images revealing a detail many had overlooked. Their hands. Not holding, but close enough that the space between them felt deliberate. In celebrity culture, such subtleties often carry more weight than overt displays of affection. Entertainment outlets soon labeled the moment as one of the most low-key yet high-impact celebrity appearances of the year. No press conference followed. No interviews were given. No clarifications were offered. And yet, the silence only allowed the story to grow louder. Pop culture analysts suggest that Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet may now be in a phase of their relationship that no longer seeks public validation, but doesn't entirely avoid public visibility either. Palm Springs served as the perfect backdrop. Removed from the chaos of Los Angeles, yet close enough to remain firmly within the media spotlight. As the day came to a close, view counts continued to climb. Comment sections filled with theories, praise, skepticism, and fascination. Some supported them, others questioned the timing, while many simply enjoyed the unfolding celebrity narrative. One thing was undeniable: the moment delivered a powerful emotional payoff for audiences who have followed their story from the beginning. And just as attention reached its peak, Kylie and Timothée chose silence. No new posts. No stories. No immediate reactions. that absence of response only amplified the impact of what had already gone viral. In modern celebrity culture, sometimes saying nothing is the loudest statement of all. Now, the photos and videos from Palm Springs are more than event snapshots. They have become symbols of a relationship evolving on its own terms, of narrative control in the digital age, and of how two global icons can dominate online conversation with nothing more than a brief appearance. If you believe this moment was more than coincidence, share your perspective. If you see it as a calculated move, let your analysis be heard. And if you're simply watching how a single second can shift a global narrative, stay tuned, because this story is far from over. And that unfinished silence is exactly where the story grows even louder. As night fell in Palm Springs, the conversation surrounding Kylie Jenner and Timothee Chalamet showed no signs of slowing down. Instead of fading, the narrative expanded. New angles of the same moment surfaced, slowed-down clips appeared with dramatic zoom-ins, and side-by-side comparisons flooded timelines. Every movement was replayed. Every expression was scrutinized. In the attention economy of celebrity culture, repetition does not dilute impact, it multiplies it. What made this moment particularly powerful was not what happened on camera, but what didn't. There was no confirmation, no denial, no attempt to steer the narrative. That vacuum created space for imagination, and imagination is where virality thrives. Fans began stitching videos together, creating their own interpretations of the Palm Springs appearance, while commentary channels dissected the footage frame by frame, transforming seconds into hours of discussion. Industry insiders noted how unusual this level of restraint was, especially given Kylie Jenner's massive social media presence. For someone whose life has long been documented in real time, the decision to remain silent stood out. It suggested a shift, not just in how a relationship is presented, but in how control over personal narrative is exercised. Timothee Chalamet, known for his guarded approach to fame, appeared perfectly aligned with this quieter strategy. Behind the scenes, sources close to the event emphasized that the atmosphere was intentionally intimate. The guest list was limited. Security was tight. Yet the presence of phones made total privacy impossible. In that sense, the viral outcome felt almost inevitable. When two of the most recognizable figures in entertainment occupy the same physical space, the internet follows. As hours turned into days, mainstream media outlets reframed the Palm Springs appearance as a defining pop culture moment. Headlines shifted from speculation to interpretation. Analysts discussed how celebrity relationships now function less as announcements and more as evolving storylines, released in fragments rather than statements. Kylie and Timothee's appearance fit that model perfectly: no clear beginning, no clear message, just a moment dropped into the public consciousness. The timing also fueled speculation. With award season conversation still lingering and Kylie Jenner maintaining her dominance in fashion and business news, the Palm Springs moment felt strategically placed, even if unintentionally so. Search trends reflected this surge, with combined keywords related to their names, the event, and Palm Springs continuing to rise long after the initial clips appeared. Then came the reactions from those closest to the celebrity ecosystem. Fellow entertainers subtly acknowledged the buzz through likes, emojis, and cryptic comments. No names were mentioned, but the recognition was unmistakable. In today's digital culture, even indirect acknowledgement can validate a narrative, and audiences noticed. Midway through the week, a new wave of content reignited interest. Previously unseen photos emerged, reportedly taken moments before the viral videos. The lighting was softer. The expressions more relaxed. These images painted a fuller picture of the evening, reinforcing the perception of comfort and familiarity between Kylie and Timothee. Once again, nothing explicit, but enough to keep curiosity alive. This is where the story reached a turning point. Viewers who had casually scrolled past the first clips began to circle back. Retention spiked. Comment sections grew longer, more analytical. The conversation matured from surface-level excitement into deeper cultural discussion. What does privacy look like in 2026 celebrity culture? How much is intentional, and how much is organic? And why do quiet moments often resonate louder than grand gestures? The Palm Springs appearance became a case study. Marketing experts pointed out how unplanned authenticity often outperforms polished messaging. Relationship analysts debated whether public silence signals confidence or caution. Fans, meanwhile, remained emotionally invested, projecting hopes, concerns, and expectations onto a story that offered no clear answers. As the climax of attention settled, one realization became clear: this was never about a single photo or video. It was about timing, restraint, and contrast. In an era saturated with constant updates, Kylie Jenner and Timothee Chalamet captured attention by offering less. That scarcity transformed ordinary gestures into headline material. And just when audiences expected a follow-up, an Instagram post, a red carpet appearance, a public acknowledgement, nothing happened. That absence became the payoff. It confirmed that the Palm Springs moment was not a teaser for an announcement, but a standalone chapter, complete in its ambiguity. Now, days later, the images continue to circulate, detached from their original context yet still powerful. They have entered the archive of pop culture moments that define an era, not because of what was said, but because of what was felt. A shared glance. A synchronized step. A silence that spoke volumes. As the conversation gradually transitions from breaking news to cultural reference, one question remains unanswered, and perhaps intentionally so. Was Palm Springs a glimpse into a deeper chapter, or simply a moment allowed to exist without explanation? Whatever the answer, the impact is undeniable. Kylie Jenner and Timothee Chalamet once again demonstrated how influence works in the modern age, not through declarations, but through presence. Not through confirmation, but through control. And as audiences continue to replay, analyze, and debate every second of that night, one thing is certain: the Palm Springs moment has already secured its place in the timeline of celebrity history. The story may pause here, but the conversation is far from over. And that lingering pause became the fuel for an even bigger wave. As the days passed, the Palm Springs footage refused to fade from public memory. Instead of being replaced by the next viral moment, it evolved. Clips were re-edited with cinematic music. Slow-motion zooms highlighted micro-expressions. Side-by-side comparisons contrasted earlier public appearances with this quieter, more restrained interaction. Each reinterpretation added a new layer, keeping the narrative alive and emotionally charged. What stood out most to observers was how natural everything appeared. There was no exaggerated affection, no performative gestures aimed at the camera. For a culture accustomed to spectacle, this subtlety felt almost disruptive. Commentators began describing the moment as antiviral virality, content that explodes precisely because it refuses to shout. Entertainment journalists noted that Palm Springs has increasingly become a refuge for celebrities seeking controlled exposure. Not fully hidden, but not entirely public. The location itself added symbolism. A place known for privacy, reflection, and retreat suddenly became the backdrop for one of the most talked about celebrity sightings of the year. That contrast only amplified interest. Meanwhile, search engines continued to reflect sustained curiosity. Keywords tied to Kylie Jenner, Timothee Chalamet, Palm Springs event, viral celebrity couple, and private appearance remained among the most searched entertainment topics well beyond the initial 48-hour spike. This wasn't a flash trend. It was a slow burn. Another detail quietly gained attention: their timing. According to attendees, Kylie and Timothee left the event separately, minutes apart, mirroring their arrival. No dramatic exit. No coordinated departure. This symmetry reinforced the perception of intentional restraint, as if visibility was carefully measured down to the minute. Experts in celebrity branding weighed in, suggesting that this approach represents a new era of relationship storytelling. Instead of public confirmation followed by constant exposure, modern celebrity couples increasingly allow moments to surface organically, letting audiences build the narrative themselves. The Palm Springs appearance fit this framework almost perfectly. As discussions deepened, fans revisited past sightings, interviews, and timelines, stitching together context. Old quotes resurfaced. Previous appearances were re-examined. Patterns were identified where none had been noticed before. The Palm Springs moment became the lens through which everything else was reinterpreted. Then, unexpectedly, fashion media entered the conversation. Kylie's outfit and Timothee's styling were analyzed not just for aesthetics, but for symbolism. Neutral tones. Relaxed silhouettes. Choices that communicated ease rather than performance. Stylists suggested that even wardrobe played a role in shaping the understated impact of the moment. This shift in focus marked another escalation. What began as a viral clip transformed into a multi-industry discussion spanning entertainment, fashion, media strategy, and pop culture psychology. Few celebrity sightings managed to cross that threshold, and fewer still without a single spoken word. At the height of this renewed attention, speculation reached its peak. Was this the clearest public signal yet? Or was it simply two people existing comfortably in the same space? The lack of answers kept engagement high, proving once again that ambiguity is one of the most powerful tools in modern storytelling. And still, there was silence. No denial. No confirmation. No attempt to redirect attention. That silence acted as a mirror, reflecting whatever viewers wanted to see. For supporters, it felt authentic and grounded. For skeptics, calculated and strategic. For casual observers, endlessly fascinating. As the news cycle slowly began to move forward, one final realization settled in: Palm Springs wasn't about revelation. It was about presence. A reminder that in a world oversaturated with content, a single restrained moment can dominate attention longer than the loudest announcement. Now, long after the first clips appeared, the footage continues to circulate, no longer as breaking news, but as reference. A moment people return to. A clip reused, reshared, recontextualized. Its meaning evolving each time it's seen. And that is the true payoff. Not closure. Not answers. But longevity. Kylie Jenner and Timothee Chalamet didn't just go viral after a Palm Springs event. They created a moment that refuses to expire, one that lives on in discussion, interpretation, and memory. As audiences keep watching, rewinding, and debating, the story remains open-ended. Because sometimes, the most powerful headline isn't what happens next. It's what's left unsaid. And yet, even that unspoken ending opened the door to something larger. As the Palm Springs moment settled into collective awareness, a broader pattern began to emerge. Observers noticed how this appearance aligned with a growing shift in celebrity visibility, less announcement-driven, more moment-driven. Instead of carefully scripted reveals, influence now travels through fragments, through sightings that feel accidental but resonate deeply. Kylie Jenner and Timothee Chalamet, whether intentionally or not, had tapped directly into that shift. The story expanded beyond the couple themselves and into the mechanics of modern fame. Digital analysts highlighted how the viral spread followed a classic tension curve: initial curiosity, explosive discovery, emotional investment, and sustained discussion. The absence of confirmation acted as the glue holding each phase together. Without a definitive answer, the audience stayed engaged, filling the silence with interpretation. More footage continued to surface, not new moments, but alternate angles of the same night. Each upload reignited interest. Each repost introduced the story to new audiences who had somehow missed the first wave. For them, Palm Springs felt fresh again, almost current, proving how viral moments no longer follow linear timelines. International media picked up the narrative, reframing it for global audiences. In Europe and Asia, coverage focused less on speculation and more on symbolism, two cultural powerhouses representing different corners of entertainment, fashion and film, intersecting quietly, without spectacle. That contrast alone was enough to sustain headlines. Meanwhile, industry insiders began comparing the Palm Springs appearance to past defining celebrity moments, those brief, unguarded instances that later came to represent entire eras. Not because they revealed everything, but because they revealed just enough. A glance. A pause. A shared rhythm. These were the elements now being cited as the reason this moment endured. As attention lingered, another layer surfaced: audience fatigue with overexposure. Commentators suggested that the viral success of this understated appearance reflected a deeper desire for authenticity, or at least the illusion of it. In a landscape dominated by constant updates, restraint felt refreshing. Silence felt intentional. And intention felt powerful. The conversation also shifted toward longevity. Unlike traditional celebrity news cycles that peak and collapse within hours, this story plateaued at a high level of interest. Engagement stabilized rather than disappeared. That alone marked it as unusual. Palm Springs had become a reference point rather than a passing headline. Then came the retrospective framing. Articles and commentary began using language like "in hindsight" and "looking back," even though only days had passed. That accelerated sense of significance suggested the moment had already crossed into cultural memory. It was no longer just news, it was context. At this stage, the payoff became clear. The impact wasn't measured in likes or views alone, but in how often the moment was revisited. How often it was quoted. How frequently it was used to explain something larger about celebrity culture, relationships, and visibility in the digital age. Still, Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet remained absent from the conversation bearing their names. No corrections. No amplifications. No attempts to reclaim the narrative. That distance preserved the integrity of the moment, allowing it to exist independently of reaction. And in that independence, the story found its final form. What began as a viral photo and a few short videos after a Palm Springs event evolved into a lasting case study of modern fame. A reminder that not every headline needs a statement, and not every moment needs an explanation. As audiences continue to revisit that night, through replays, discussions, and reinterpretations, the meaning remains fluid. And perhaps that is the point. Because in the end, the true power of the Palm Springs moment lies not in what it confirmed, but in what it allowed people to feel. Curiosity. Connection. Anticipation. And as long as those emotions remain alive, the story does too. And even after all of that, the momentum still didn't break. Instead, the Palm Springs moment began to echo in places no one initially expected. Late-night talk shows referenced it in passing. Commentary podcasts used it as an example of how celebrity culture has quietly recalibrated. Without fresh footage, without new appearances, the story continued to circulate, proof that its power no longer depended on novelty, but on resonance. What kept audiences locked in was the feeling that they had witnessed something authentic, even if they couldn't fully define it. The lack of clarity became an invitation. Viewers projected meaning into the silence, and that collective interpretation gave the moment its staying power. In modern media, clarity ends conversations. Ambiguity sustains them. Data analysts tracking engagement noticed something unusual. Instead of a sharp decline after the first surge, interest flattened into a long plateau. Mentions stabilized. Searches remained consistent. The story transitioned from breaking to ongoing, a rare shift for celebrity news rooted in a single event. Another factor quietly reinforced the narrative: contrast. At the same time other public figures dominated headlines through controversy, statements, and constant visibility, Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet remained absent. That contrast sharpened focus. The quieter they stayed, the louder the Palm Springs footage felt by comparison. Commentators began reframing the moment as intentional minimalism. Not minimalism in fashion or branding, but in presence. Showing just enough to be seen, but not enough to be consumed. That balance struck a chord with audiences increasingly aware of how much of celebrity life is curated for them. Weeks after the event, the footage was still being referenced in new contexts. Relationship discussions, media strategy breakdowns, cultural trend reports. Palm Springs had become shorthand, a phrase that no longer needed explanation. Mentioning it alone was enough to trigger recognition. And through all of it, the original footage remained unchanged. No edits from the source. No official release. Just raw clips passed hand to hand, device to device. In an age of polished content, that rawness felt almost archival, as if viewers were preserving something fragile. This is where the story quietly reaches its deepest payoff. Not in revelation. Not in confirmation. But in endurance. The Palm Springs appearance didn't demand attention, it earned it over time. It didn't instruct audiences how to feel, it allowed them to decide. And in doing so, it transformed a fleeting sighting into a lasting cultural moment. Today, when people revisit those photos and videos, they're no longer just watching Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet at an event. They're revisiting how it felt when the internet collectively paused, leaned in, and waited for something that never arrived. That waiting became the experience. And as long as that feeling remains, of curiosity suspended, of meaning just out of reach, the story will continue to live on, replayed not because it changes, but because it doesn't. Because sometimes, the most powerful moments in celebrity history aren't the ones that explain everything. They're the ones that leave the world watching, wondering, and coming back for more. And even now, long after the initial wave should have faded, the Palm Springs moment continues to quietly shape conversation. What became increasingly clear was that this was not a viral spike driven by shock, controversy, or spectacle. It was driven by tone. Calm. Controlled. Almost deliberately uneventful. And yet, that very absence of drama became the drama itself. In a media environment trained to chase extremes, moderation felt radical. Cultural commentators began to describe the moment as a reflection of audience maturity. Viewers were no longer reacting solely to headlines, they were responding to nuance. The appeal wasn't in what Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet did, but in how little they felt the need to do. That restraint resonated with an audience growing weary of constant exposure. Behind the scenes, insiders suggested that Palm Springs was never meant to be seen as a statement. It was simply a setting, quiet, warm, and removed from the machinery of Hollywood. But once the footage escaped into the public sphere, intention became irrelevant. Meaning was assigned externally, shaped by millions of interpretations unfolding simultaneously. This is where the story gained its final layer of tension. Because the longer the silence continued, the more deliberate it appeared. Every passing day without comment recalibrated expectations. The public began to understand that there would be no reveal, no clarification, no neatly packaged ending. The moment would remain suspended, unfinished by design or circumstance. Media theorists pointed out how rare that is. Most celebrity narratives rush toward closure. A confirmation. A denial. A follow-up appearance. Palm Springs refused all three. It existed as a single chapter with no sequel, and that incompleteness gave it weight. As time went on, the footage took on a reflective quality. People no longer watched it looking for clues. They watched it remembering how it felt when it first appeared. The excitement. The curiosity. The collective pause. In that sense, The moment stopped being about Kylie Jenner and Timothée Chalamet as individuals and became about a shared cultural experience. Even algorithmically, the story behaved differently. Instead of being buried, it resurfaced periodically, recommended again, reshared again, discussed again. Each resurgence brought a slightly different audience, each one finding something new in the same unchanged frames. And perhaps that is the most telling outcome of all. The Palm Springs appearance didn't chase relevance. It achieved it by accident or restraint, then held on to it through silence. In doing so, it demonstrated a shift in how influence operates in the digital age. Not louder, not faster, but quieter, slower, and more intentional. As the narrative finally settles into long-term memory, it leaves behind no definitive answers, only an impression. A sense that something meaningful happened, even if no one can quite explain why. And sometimes, that feeling is stronger than certainty. So when people look back on this moment months or even years from now, it won't be remembered as a scandal or an announcement. It will be remembered as a pause. A brief interruption in the usual noise. A reminder that attention doesn't always follow action, it follows atmosphere. And that is why the photos and videos from Palm Springs still matter. Not because they revealed a secret. Not because they changed a story. But because they proved that in an era of constant motion, stillness can be powerful enough to stop the world, if only for a moment, and keep it watching long after the moment has passed.